Imagine if you had to leave every night out at 9:30, and that is the reality for many people with learning disabilities who require support to go out in the evening. I'm going to talk about the work I do in our charity, Stay Up Late, that we're doing about that and how I got into it. For 15 years, I was the bass player in this punk band, Heavy Load, and 3 of the members of Heavy Load had learning disabilities, and we used to play all over the country and other places, and we had a particularly anarchic, chaotic, very joyful and very loud sound. This is one of our early gigs, and the audience weren't always appreciative of our anarchy, but we didn't care because we always rocked. In 2008, everything changed for us. The film director, Jerry Rothwell, had been following us around for 2.5 years and made the feature documentary, Heavy Load, about us, which told the tale of us trying to get out of those social care, day centre style gigs where people weren't particularly digging our thing into the music mainstream. This film came out in 2008. Mark Kermode made it Film of the Week on 5 Live. We got some lovely praise from Kylie, the real, actual goddess of pop. And the film told that story of how we were trying to take our sound into a more mainstream setting, although Jerry himself said, on reflection, maybe the film was just the story of 5 blokes going through a midlife crisis, and there is that in there. And as a result of the film, we went on, we played 2 Glastonbury festivals, we played in New York, we released 3 albums, The Queen Mother's Dead, Shut It, and Wham. We had punk anthems that we'd written like Is Bruce Forsyth Dead? We Love George Michael, Everything Is Bollocks. Very insightful stuff. And then we even got asked to write a theme tune for the Channel 4 drama series Cast-Offs. But one of the stories in the film was how we were getting fed up with our audiences leaving just as we got on stage. It was sort of like a Spinal Tap moment that we didn't think this has anything to do with our anarchic sound. As soon as we get on stage, half the audience leaves. We thought, no, there's got to be a fundamental flaw with social care systems. And luckily, we were proved to be right some of the time. So we started up this campaign 10 years ago next month called Stay Up Late, which really challenged this issue. Why do staff have to finish work at 10 o'clock at night when people are out enjoying seeing their favourite bands or going to the movies or going to the pub with their mates? Why do rigid rotas stop people from doing the stuff that most of us probably find that we take for granted? So here we are in Trafalgar Square. This was our last ever gig, 2012, as part of the Paralympic celebrations. And by this time, we'd set up the charity Stay Up Late to carry on the work that we'd started. And we try and keep that punk attitude going throughout our work. And as a charity, we do 2 main things. We're a punk charity, we do 2 main things. Campaigning and our volunteer befriending project. Campaigning against those rigid systems, and our volunteer befriending project is a practical solution to that. Mother Teresa said the most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved. And in this country, there's around about 1.4 million people with learning disabilities. And last year, Ray James from the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services said that in the last 5 years, there'd been a real terms cut of 30% to adult social care budgets. So that means money has to be spent on what is seen as the essentials. So budgeting, keeping a roof over your head, having support to take your medication, not support to go out and see your mates and have fun and socialise. In 2010, the Learning Disability Coalition did some research to find out what they thought was going to be the impact of austerity cuts on people with learning disabilities. So they went out and they asked people with learning disabilities how they spent their time, and 47% of them said they spent most of their time at home. 51% said they feel lonely, and 64% said they don't get to see their friends. We did a survey last year to find out what was going on now, and we found that 72% of people said they don't get to go out in the evenings. And this isn't just about austerity. As I said, we started our campaign 10 years ago. That was 2 years before the global banking crisis. So there's an ingrained institutional problem around this inflexible support. And last year, the campaign on loneliness said, they came up with a statistic that loneliness is a bigger risk to health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day for your life, which is absolutely staggering. And I think the British Heart Foundation said there's a 30% increase in the risk of heart disease through loneliness and social isolation. So this is a picture of probably what many of your lives looks like. You've got you, happy you, at the centre. You've got your family, your close family around you. Then the next circle out is your close friends, the people you go to at a time of crisis. And then the wider circle, you've got people who have a shared interest. So maybe you're in the same football team, or go to the same choir, or place of worship, or whatever, those sorts of looser connections we have. And then in the outside circle, there's people who are paid to be in your life. So that could be your plumber, your hairdresser, or your counsellor. Those people you pay to be there. And then on the outskirts, there's people you know but not by name, so people you might bump into in the street. This is what that picture looks like for many people with learning disabilities. They've got close family at the very centre, and then people who are paid to be in their lives on the outside, and a void in the middle. So we thought we would set up our volunteer befriending project to try and do something about this. The blocks that are getting in the way of people going out are, like I've mentioned, the lack of support, people's worry about being safe in their community, accessible transport or transport that doesn't run at the right time of day, people not having the confidence or the motivation or anybody to go with. And I wouldn't go to a gig on my own. I like to go with somebody else so I can enjoy the time with them. And also a lack of information, not knowing what's going on. But we also know that there is an absolute desire by people with learning disabilities to be active in their communities and be part of everything that we take for granted. So there might well be some local government types in the audience today. I don't know. You can keep that secret if you like. But they're probably getting really excited by this slide because it's full of words that get them excited, like community capacity and well-being and assets-based approaches and all of that sort of stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Because trying to excite somebody at a gig to get involved in your volunteer befriending project by using that kind of language. So we don't use that sort of language. We called our project Gig Buddies. And Gig Buddies works really simply. We match up socially isolated people with learning disabilities and or autism with a volunteer who loves the same kind of music as they do, or other cultural interests. So we could think about the connections that might exist in this room. There's probably people up there who love musical theatre, maybe some over there who love musical theatre, or there's definitely some old punks down here. There's probably some over there. Bizarrely, I think there were some Phil Collins fans in the silent disco. But we won't ask you to reveal yourselves. But the point is that you've got things in common in this room with people who are strangers at the moment, but you could end up, through those shared connections, making friendships, and that's how Gig Buddies works. So, I think there's three main reasons why people don't volunteer. One is they don't want to. Two is they don't have the time. And three is they don't know what to do. And Gig Buddies tries to at least solve the second two. You can't do anything about people who don't want to do something nice. But if you can turn if you can turn what you're doing already into a volunteering opportunity, then, that's a win-win, isn't it? Going out to a gig, seeing a band that you love, and taking somebody else with you to enjoy it as well, that's even better. So we try and make volunteering as easy as possible. We do all of the criminal record checks and all of that sort of thing, but we try and cut through as much of the red tape as possible, hence the awful visual pun. This, for me, is a picture of what being a gig buddy is all about. Just an ordinary scene of two people, Ryan and Natalie, sitting in a pub, talking about heavy metal, eating pizza, and enjoying beer. That's what it's about, just ordinary stuff. When we started Gig Buddies, we started in 2012 with £2,000 in our pocket. We've now got 80 pairs of buddies across Sussex. We've supported an organisation in Sydney to set one up, another one in Edinburgh, and then we've got projects starting in Portsmouth and Halifax next year. And really, all it's trying to do is support people to do ordinary stuff. Earlier this year, I was asked to depict what our charity does in a picture. And I came up with this. It's the most ordinary thing I could possibly think of. Except, of course, we do them like this. Don't dunk those at home, people. It is all we're doing is just trying to make life ordinary for people. And as I was writing this speech, I was also thinking about, we wrote a manifesto for change last year, where people with learning disabilities had told us what they wanted from their lives. Much like the birds, it involved food, drink, sex, but it also involved seeing their friends and going out in the evenings, choosing their bedtimes, and just regular stuff like that. And last month, the Care Quality Commission published a State of Care report, which said that good quality support can be the small things like handing out the post and making people cups of tea. I disagree. No, it isn't. We need to set up our sights a lot higher. It is about supporting people to have friendships, develop relationships, have sex lives, have paid work, and all of those kind of things. So, thinking about the theme of heroes, I got thinking about Clark Kent and how he goes into the phone box and transforms himself into Superman. Here's our project manager, Madeline, going into our local phone box, and look what happens when she comes back out. She looks exactly the same. And that's what gig buddying is all about. You don't have to do anything different. You just be yourself, just be a nice person and share time with people. But if you do think that going to gigs is an act of heroism, then we can all be heroes and not just for one day. Thank you very much.